Hi everyone, this is Dr. Hall. We're going to talk about the organs of the digestive system today. So of course food is going to come in through our mouth, and this is the tongue. It's actually a very large muscle, the tongue is, and so we also have of course the hard palate, the soft palate, and the uvula that we talked about with the respiratory system, but we also have salivary glands. Underneath the tongue, right here, we have the sublingual. Sub means under, lingua means tongue, so sublingual gland. Then over to the side and underneath our jaw, you can't really see it, but that would be here, is the submandibular gland because it's underneath the mandible. And then out here in the cheek, we have a quite large salivary gland. That's the parotid gland. So our three sets of salivary glands are the parotid, the sublingual, and the submandibular. Food is then of course going to move into the oropharynx, the epiglottis is going to close, it's going to move down into the esophagus. So on our torso models here, we can see the esophagus is green on this one and a brownish color here, and you can see remember it's traveling posterior to the trachea. That's why we needed to have those C-shaped rings on the trachea. From the esophagus, which is really just a transport tube, food is then going to move into the stomach, which is a muscular bag. There are different regions of the stomach, and I'm going to show those to you now. So first of all, when the esophagus empties food into the stomach, we want to make sure that when the stomach starts to churn it all up, that the food doesn't go back up into the esophagus. So we have a purse string-like muscle that will close around the opening from the esophagus into the stomach, called the lower esophageal sphincter, or LES, the lower esophageal sphincter. Once we come into the stomach, we'll see, if we look inside, that the stomach has all of these folds in it. They're kind of accordion-like folds that allow it to expand so you can eat a big meal. Those folds are called rugae, R-U-G-A-E, rugae. We also have different regions of the stomach. So this area where the esophagus comes in is called the cardia, which is weird because that means heart, but that's what it's called, the cardia. This top of the hump here, the most superior aspect of the stomach, this is called the fundus. The main part of the stomach is called the body. And then as we get toward the end of the stomach here, this is the pylorus. And if we look inside, we can see that there's another sphincter muscle here, which is the pyloric sphincter. And that muscle is going to keep food in the stomach and keep it from going out into the duodenum, which is the next structure. So to review the parts of the stomach: cardia, fundus, body, pylorus, and well, we don't have a sphincter on this one. So as I mentioned, from the stomach then, after food has been churned into chyme and mixed with stomach juices, it's going to move into the first part of the small intestine, which is the duodenum. You can see it right here and right here. So the duodenum is that first of the three sections of the small intestine. From here, I'm going to move this out of the way so you can see. We have a really important structure that's located just adjacent to the duodenum. This is the pancreas. It's going to make our digestive enzymes for us. It's a very strange looking little organ, and it has a duct, the pancreatic duct, that is going to bring those digestive enzymes into and squirt them into the duodenum so that they can mix with the food that we have just eaten. So pancreas, pancreatic duct, duodenum. From the duodenum then, the food is going to continue on into the next part of the small intestine. The next part of the small intestine is the jejunum. So the first part of the small intestine is the jejunum. It's going to move through all of these different areas and then ultimately into the ileum, which is the more distal part of the small intestine. So we can see the ileum down here, which is eventually going to end up coming into the large intestine or colon here. So three parts of the small intestine: duodenum, jejunum, ileum, right? There's not a clear demarcation between the two. And then we're going to move into the large intestine. So I'm going to show you, right? Small intestine, not very interesting to see. And I'm going to replace, well, not yet. So from the ileum, we're going to move into the first part of the colon or large intestine. And this first part right here is called the cecum. All right, so this very first part is called the cecum. So there's another valve here, kind of like a sphincter muscle, but a little bit different, called the Ileocecal Valve. You can see it right there. The other thing you can see over here is this little green worm-like structure. That is the vermiform appendix. That's the appendix. If you've ever had yours taken out, you don't have that anymore. So digested food is going to move into the cecum, which is the first part of the large intestine or colon. There's our appendix right there. Food moves through the ileocecal valve. Next, it's going to move through the large intestine, and the job of the large intestine is to remove, for the most part, fluid from these contents. And so it's going to peristalse and move the food up this way through the ascending colon. Then it's going to have a little corner here, and that is the right or hepatic flexure. Then it's going to move across the transverse colon to the left or splenic flexure, down the descending colon, through this squiggle of a sigmoid colon, and then eventually into the rectum. There it's going to stay until it's a convenient time for you to get rid of it. And then when you do have a bowel movement and defecate, it's going to move out through the anal canal. So let's just review on this one. So cecum, ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, sigmoid colon, down into the rectum back there. Let's remove, oh, yep, and then into the anal canal. Okay, we can see some other interesting structures here. Remember, our superior mesenteric artery and superior mesenteric vein, our inferior mesenteric artery supplying the left half of the colon, and the inferior mesenteric vein. See them here, superior mesenteric artery and vein, inferior mesenteric artery, inferior mesenteric vein, which you'll recall drains into the splenic vein, which we can see here. Splenic vein, inferior mesenteric vein, superior mesenteric vein coming together to form the hepatic portal vein. So let's review some of the structures of the liver. So this is kind of big, right? So your liver would normally be like this, but we're going to look at the undersurface of it. So if I just kind of tipped it up in the body like this, it would normally be down like that. Here is my hepatic portal vein, bringing that blood with all of the nutrients and potential toxins that I've just absorbed from my intestines. And also an artery that's bringing blood to the liver itself for giving it its oxygen and glucose. That's the hepatic artery proper. It is a branch off of the common hepatic artery, which was one of the 3 arteries coming off the celiac trunk. So hepatic artery proper, hepatic portal vein, and now we see these green structures. This is your gallbladder. It's a storage sac for bile, and bile is made by the liver and drains out of the liver through these hepatic ducts into a common hepatic duct. Some of it will get stored in the gallbladder, and then when you eat something really fatty like some fried cheese curds, the gallbladder contracts, squeezes it out through the cystic duct, then down through the common bile duct or the bile duct. That bile duct is then going to take that bile and empty it down into, look, there it is, the duodenum, right in the same area that the pancreatic duct is emptying. So when food comes into the duodenum, it's not only getting the digestive enzymes made by the pancreas, but it is also getting the bile in the same location as it then proceeds into the rest of the small intestine. A couple of other features about the large intestine. One is that we have this band of smooth muscle. There's actually 3 of them. You can see another one here that run longitudinally, and they kind of scrunch it up into little bunchy parts. And those little bunched parts are called haustra. This band of muscle is called the Tinea Coli. So Tinea Coli bunches the large intestine up into haustra. And so I think we have gone through all the structures of the digestive system. Marvelous.